howdy, Clods. We have it. We have the information. We have the specs. We have the pricing. And let me tell you, the Ayaneo Pocket Air Mini is actually a budget device, an actually budget Android device from Ayaneo. So I'm going to go over the price. I'm going to go over the specs. I'm going to compare it to the Nimzy Air X because it is actually in the same price range as the Nimzy Air X, which means that they were specifically targeting the Nimzy Air X price line and wanting to go for that budget Android device. Then I'm also going to go into a little bit of conspiracy theory, but we'll get to that in a second. So first, thanks to Hippie Knox on the SBC Gaming subreddit, we have a price for the Pocket Air Mini and some specs, and then I'll go into the full specs, and then we'll see how the site updated. First off, the Ayaneo Air Mini with 32 gigabytes of internal storage and 2 gigabytes of RAM is $90, and the 64 gigabyte internal, 3 gigabyte RAM is $100. And then they have a sale for early pricing, as they often do, $75 for the 2 gigabyte RAM model and $84 for the 3 gigabyte RAM model. This makes it incredibly competitive with the Nimzy Air X, and honestly, it's a really good move for Ayaneo to do this. As I've said in the past, Ayaneo is a company that has been making extremely boutique devices, really weird, really specific devices where they target a specific system and then give you triple, quadruple the power you would actually need or use for that device. So this is really good of them to make such a budget device. Now, I think they're doing this because they know that their audience is entirely people that are buying expensive things. Them creating this is them creating a budget, affordable device, their bread and butter, so to speak, their device that is going to make them money long run. Whereas these other devices that they've made are things that are going to pick up, have short bursts of interest, and then drop off again, because not everyone is willing to spend like $300, $200 on a Game Boy Advance Micro Android device. So let's talk about the specs, the update, and then the specs, and then we'll talk about how it compares to the Nimzy Air X, and I've got a comparison between their chipsets too. So flagship DNA, entry-level price, premium experience, an Ayaneo retro handheld that everyone can afford. And it is actually true. I may have to eat my own dirt. World's first 4:3 retro display. When, again, the world's first thing they're talking about in the specific size that they're talking about. Their 4.2 inch one, which makes it slightly bigger than the RG40XXH. Ultra compact and portable, ergonomic grips, RGB Hall effect joysticks and Hall triggers. I love me some Hall effect. Haven't had a device with Hall triggers yet, or maybe I haven't, didn't notice it, but you know, I'll take it. Powerful cooling fan, self-developed software ecosystem. Helio G90T entry performance leader. Smoothly runs mainstream games of PS2 and GameCube. I don't entirely believe that, but based on comparisons with the Nimzy Air X, it's a little bit better than it, so it actually might be somewhat playable. Active cooling system with built-in fan for efficient heat dissipation, 4,500 milliamp hour battery for long-lasting gameplay. Just the size of the battery doesn't matter as much as how much power the device actually takes, so we'll have to see firsthand how much of a difference that makes. Whatever they say the device runs for in hours, like subtract 1 or 2, because they always do it on like the lowest brightness. Ergonomic grip design for comfortable handling. It does have some pretty nice cheeks. Ayaneo's self-developed Android software ecosystem. I don't know anything about that. I don't own an Ayaneo device. The world's first 4.2 screen again. Stunning retro visuals with no stretching or black borders, restoring the purest retro look. That's going to depend on the system, but okay. Ayaneo's classic design language, ultra compact with a perfect blend of form and function. I'm actually kind of excited for this because Ayaneo does have that really fancy build quality, so I'm actually, I might actually get one of these, or try to get one of these. Retro aesthetics with premium craftsmanship integrated into ergonomic design, comfortable grip, and a refined aesthetic, redefining entry-level Android handhelds. MTK Helio G90T, octa-core high-performance processor for both retro classics and modern gaming. This is actually a pretty smart choice because the Nimzy Air X doesn't play PSP perfectly, but the G90, from what I've heard, plays PSP pretty dang well. Wi-Fi, 5G, and Bluetooth 5.0. Okay, the performance mode is interesting, but the other stuff is just pretty basic stuff. Alright, and then the specs. 4.2 inch 1280 by 960p 60 Hz LCD. You might be expecting 120 Hz, you might want a 120 FPS display for black frame insertion. We're not really going to be getting that at this low of a price. We go over the chipset when we compare it to the Nimzy 2GB version and 3 3 GB version. So the difference is marginal, and you may think you want to go for the lower one, but the more RAM we have, the more power we'll get out of it. But interestingly, this has less RAM than the Nimzy Air X does, which means even though its chipset is a little more capable than the Nimzy Air's chipset, it has 1 GB less RAM, which means it might perform less well at specific systems. Buttons, 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 vibration, accelerometer. Those are some more bare minimum stuff. Type C, but how fast does it charge? Audio vibration, X input vibration, button vibration, global monitoring, custom performance modes, custom fan curve, key mapping, or basic stuff. Charging power, 18 watt. It charges fast. An actual fast charging device. Well, I'm sure Ayaneo does that because their devices are big. I'm so tired of Ambernick's low charging speeds. And then, yeah, some more basic stuff, Android 11. And then it's just a bunch of pictures with no information. So, and then we've got the information for the Nimzy Air X, and we can compare these two. The Nimzy Air X has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 662. Its GPU is an Adreno 610, which is a older Adreno now. I had a RP3 Plus with Adreno 630, and it ran GameCube somewhat well. We've seen the Air X being played with by Retro Game Cores and Tech Dweeb, so we know that GameCube, it gets so-so performance out of it, and he said that he doesn't consider GameCube to be playable on the Nimzy Air X. But if we compare the two chipsets to each other, the Helio G90 is slightly better. It's a 7-point difference, and as we see here, we have a 6% faster CPU speed, a slightly higher RAM speed, faster download speed, faster GPU clock speed, 200 megahertz faster GPU turbo speed, 2 GB larger maximum memory amount. But yeah, so it's slightly better in every aspect, but slightly better might be just what we need to get into the GameCube area. I don't think this is going to play PS2. I don't think this is going to play PS2 well. I think it'll be able to start PS2, and I think it'll be able to start GameCube, but I don't think we're going to see good performance out of them from this. I don't think you're going to get, I think like 30 FPS is probably going to be the peak. I just don't think this is going to do it. I don't think this is going to bring us into GameCube and PS2. Now, that doesn't mean that this is a bad device. There is a lot of use cases for Android that does make it better for retro gaming. And that's going to be the touchscreen, of course. It being an Android device means that it has an accelerometer in it, which means you'll be able to play tilt games. It being Android means that it has a crazy sleep function. Like, you can sleep games on Android for days. You can maybe get 2 days of sleep on a single charge of like an Ambernick Linux-based device, but like you can get like an entire week, like minimum, out of sleeping an Android device. Android is really good just for doing that. It's just for like having a really quality sleep function. And the sleep function on an Android device is stop and go, like a light switch. Like, it's actually really good. Like, you can just flip it on and off like a light switch and just, you know, pick up exactly where you left off, as long as you don't close the app. Some games crash when doing the sleep function, but for the most part, it works perfectly fine, and it's really good. And I would say that that's like the main reason to get like a low-powered Android device, is just to like have all the stuff that you want from like a Linux-based device, plus the additional power of an Android device, which means you're going to get your N64 and Dreamcast playing a little better, and that you're going to get PSP with great performance across the board. And then you have that superior sleep function on top of that. So think of this low-budget Android as like a budget Ambernick, but better, because of those modern Android conveniences. And I mean, if you want to check your socials on it, you can check your socials, I guess. I wouldn't recommend putting your socials on your handheld, just because it's super distracting. It's going to keep you from playing games. There is some negative downsides to starting on an Android device. An Android device is going to have a lengthy setup, and it's going to require some fiddling, and it's going to require a little bit of experimentation from you. If you're looking for an out-of-the-box experience, Android is pretty terrible at that, just because of how much stuff you have to download. It does not come pre-set up like Linux-based handhelds do. You have to do a lot of the stuff yourself. But that extra power, that sleep function, totally worth it. If you don't have a device yet, I can see this being a good device for you, as long as you keep your expectations in check. Do not expect GameCube, do not expect PS2. They say GameCube and PS2, but like, we don't really know what that means yet. They could be just saying like, hey, it runs PS2, it starts it, it doesn't have a high frame rate, but it starts it, you know, that kind of thing. They're gonna boast what they can boast. Like I said earlier, with measuring their battery longevity, they'll turn the device's brightness as low as possible and then run it for like as as long as they can, and then they'll use that as their advertised how long it can run for. In reality, no one is playing with the brightness that low. Keep that in mind. Just because they say it can do it doesn't mean it can actually do it. This is looking to be a good device, and it's looking to be better than the Nimzy Air X, and considering its performance level, what it's able to do compared to the Nimzy Air X, its screen and device size makes a lot more sense. Being that it's not going to be doing a lot of GameCube, and it's probably not going to be doing a lot of PS2, the 4:3 screen ratio makes a ton of sense. And even if you do run like GameCube well on this, which will be very awesome, I'm not against it if it works, but if you're able to run GameCube on this, you're probably not going to want to do widescreen hacks anyway because you're just used to it. So having the 4:3 ratio as the default is going to be really good for this. So I think if you're looking for like an Amberneck Linux-based handheld experience that's elevated, I think this is going to be a really good device for that. The Nimzy Air X, not so much, because it's a 16:9 device. It really tried to sell itself as a PSP device, and it kind of is, but it's not like the best PSP device. There's like, as we saw with like, if you saw Retro Game Core's video on it, he says that like it gets really good performance, better than a lot of devices do, but not perfect. This will probably get perfect PSP performance just because it's a good chipset for it. I've seen people say that the G90 is really good for PSP. Someone said, do you think maybe Nimzy is owned by Ayaneo? Personally, I don't think so. I know Nimzy came out of the gate doing a lot of the same things that Ayaneo does, but they might have just picked that up from watching them. They might have been like, oh, we're big fans of Ayaneo, we're going to see what they do, and we're going to replicate doing a lot of that. Because, you know, these companies bite off each other a lot. As you can see with this device, it's totally biting off of what Nimzy Air is doing. So the Nimzy Air and the Pocket Air have entirely two different chipsets, and I can totally see them maybe releasing the Nimzy Air X as a, like, testing the water sort of thing. We make nothing but expensive handhelds. Let's make this fake company real quick and release a single device and see if people actually want a budget Android device. And then people started getting it. And then they were like, okay, yeah, we should make a budget Android device. I can see that being a possibility. But what I don't think makes sense is, why would you make two companies with two different devices and build up two different fan bases? That doesn't make sense for business. Making fake competition. I think what Ayaneo's plan for this is, like I said at the beginning, I think they're making a cheap device because they have an entire long history of making very expensive devices, and they're trying to make a cheap device so that they can get that one audience they don't have, the Linux-based users. The Linux-based users are used to buying devices that are sub 80. If they can get Linux-based users to move over to Android, they have a much bigger, you know, they're selling a lot more stuff. And then they can sell you a more expensive device later, and you'll be like, oh, I really liked this Ayaneo device. I should upgrade to this new one that they released. This is the free sample the Coke dealer gives you to get you in the door and then get you hooked, and then they sell you another device later. And that's why I think they're not Nimzy Air. I think Ayaneo is intentionally doing this to sell to that one specific audience that they don't have, and that's budget gamers like me and you. Very cool. I'm not looking forward to having to eat... Wait, I said I would only have to eat my dirt if it could play GameCube at 60 FPS and was under $150. So I still might not have to eat my dirt yet. So looking very much forward to checking this device out when it has some review units available. I will definitely be keeping my eyes very hardly pointed at Retro Game Cores and Tech Dweeb, and I am very excited for this, honestly. I can totally see myself getting one of these. I just really like the look. Wish there was a pink option, but you know, not everything can be perfect. I don't want the Nimzy Air X, even though it's good. I think the Nimzy Air X is really good. If you can't get a hold of one of these Pocket Air Minis, a Nimzy Air X is a good second option. I just don't think I want 16:9. I don't want 16:9 in a retro device. I think I'd rather have 4:3 and then have black borders on my 16:9 games than having a dedicated 16:9 device, because I just don't play that much 16:9. So we'll just see. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to tip your YouTuber. I take likes and subscribes, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.